have the distinguished panelists, including Siddharth Sethi, co-founder InfoBeans, and Vikram Krishnan, MD of Volvo. To enrich our discussion, we are privileged to have Professor Srinivas Gunta moderating the session. Brace yourselves for the comprehensive exploration as our experts analyze. Now I request the panelists to take on the stage and Professor Srinivas Gunta to take the discussion forward.
बड़े बड़े लोग वहाँ बैठ के इधर आए यहाँ से फिर डरते
Light.
Very good afternoon, and welcome to this panel discussion. So we are privileged to have two panelists, Mr. Siddharth Sethi. Of course, we know him as the co-founder of InfoBeans, but more importantly, he's also an alumnus of IIM Indore, and that's something that we should justifiably take pride in. And of course, we also have Mr. Vikram Krishnan, heading Volvo Construction Equipment in India, and also the president of Indian Construction Equipment Manufacturers Association. So to start with, I would request each of them to introduce themselves more, and then possibly give their opening comments, and then I'll lead the discussion by having a few questions. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So thanks for inviting me here. First and foremost, I would like to first thank Mr. Pradeep from Volvo Asia, who called me and requested me to participate in this event. I wasn't aware about the details, and then of course Vish was behind me continuously. I'm seeing here now, following up to make sure that I was coming here. So before I speak about the topic, let me admit Pradeep is a better expert than me on that subject as a supply chain person. I started my career as a graduate engineer with Tata Motors way back in '93 in Jamshedpur, and worked in the field for many years before moving on to Volvo in '99, and I've been here since then in Volvo as in different roles, as both as a field service guy. Then I was heading after sales for Asia, which was the Singapore office. Came back to India in 2014 to head India business, and since I'm talking to management students, so one of my achievements in this time is the turnaround story. How to turn around a business. So that's something which has been a great achievement that I count myself in. And of course, the other thing I would also say, being in India last 9 years, also seeing the transformation of potential to reality has been one of my own observations looking at the world. I think we are in a great time and place as a country, and opportunity beckons. And for all of you youngsters getting, I'm sure in the middle of your careers, preparing for providing leadership to different walks of life in this country. So wish you all the very best in that.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I think my only introduction as far as this stage goes is I am one of you. I did my EPGP in 2006. So that is who I am, and I'm very happy to be here.
So there was a time when the debate was, should you be making for India or make in India? And then suddenly after COVID, we realized that, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. So people have been talking about China plus one, because they're talking about de-risking supply chains and all. So firstly, I wanted to hear from you both in terms of, is India uniquely positioned to take up this opportunity, and should we actually go ahead with this opportunity?
Yeah. So first and foremost, in my opinion, China plus one is more known post-COVID, but it's in place for much before that. And as all supply chains go, we always try to de-risk supply chains as much as possible. And I think it's more started from the fact and realization that, for the whole world, China was becoming it was becoming a bottleneck, but also the supplier of everything, which is still the case. And I think COVID brought the biggest challenges to life, and the risks actually manifested into reality. And I think since then, it has taken more traction as a topic of discussion in management forums and in business as such. I think, of course, China Plus is not only about India, it's China Plus any other country, and so many other countries are getting benefited. And I think Vietnam or Malaysia, or there are different countries who are benefited. And I think India has taken this, got onto the bandwagon much more post-COVID. But I can say that, probably the whole journey starts, and I think from the 2016 Make in India slogan that Mr. Amitabh Kant gave, and created a huge event in Mumbai with the Prime Minister and all of the people and the whole world coming to witness it. I think that's where it kind of, so the Make in India was not only about Make in India for India, but Make in India for the world. And today in corporate circles, I think when we discuss about strategies for India, every one of us, particularly the multinationals, I should say, we have a strategy which says India for India and India for the world. And I think both of these are coming into play very actively, at least in the manufacturing sector here, quite a lot. I thought it was a Volvo phenomena because we read a lot internally, but in the industry forums, I see continuously getting repeated, not just in the construction equipment space, which I am coming from, but automotive and many others too. So I think India, from a perspective of what can India do, I think we are positioned well. Many factors. We can dwell on it more. But I think today there is a certain thinking that India, as a domestic market, offers large enough opportunity for scale for manufacturing, and that can be leveraged to drive growth, for those similar products elsewhere in the world. This is the base theory I believe in. That is, what is causing multinationals to come and look at India. Then there are many other factors that can come in favor or against us, and let's get into it later.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a contrarian view here. I think we should ignore China. As simple as that. What is China? It is nothing but another country. We should delve on our own strengths. Our strength does not lie in manufacturing. Our strength lies in services, and that is also the future. We cannot possibly compete with China, a country which we have, I think, $110 billion trade deficit, 90% negative trade deficit. With US, China has, again, a similar statistics. Can we take up all of that? No. A company wants to come into India and start manufacturing, most welcome. But as a country, what should be our strategy? Our strategy needs to be, in my opinion, play on our strengths. And our strength, especially in the IT sector, but there are many other services that we can talk about, including travel and hospitality, including financial services, all of those. Now, if we continue to benchmark ourselves with China, even as a manufacturing hub, we are far behind. When I say far behind, I mean there's absolutely no comparison. And this comes out of my about 6 or 7 visits to China. I mean, there's no comparison. And let's be honest with ourselves. Let's not try and create a whole lot of bullshit here and say we can compete with China. We can't compete with China, at least not today. And the question really is, should we compete with China? We as a country are uniquely placed with an English-speaking population, which China does not have. And this is the reason, this is the area where we earn most of our foreign exchange. In the new age economy, I'm not talking about commodities and export of wheat and rice, I'm saying the new age economies, this is where our strength lies. Our strength lies in engineering, research and development. Boeing opened up something here in India, not because it was a China Plus One policy. Boeing is not even there in China. It is because India is seen as a unique market, and they were literally not, I won't say forced, but market forces, government policies, etc. They had to be present in one of the largest aviation markets in the world, the fastest growing aviation market. So in my opinion, it should not be a China plus one policy for India at least. It could be a China plus one policy for certain industries, certain large companies like Apple, for example, but it is their policy. It is their strategy. Our strategy as a country, as a group of people who are going to lead the industry here, probably should be trying to figure out what our strengths are, what we can actually do, and then reach excellence in that space. That is, my thought process.
Okay, thanks a lot for your initial comments. And Siddharth, I believe your position possibly comes because of your own background in InfoBeans. I also remember when India had close to 100 CMM level 5 phones way back in 2005, Chinese government announced that they would have something like 300 Chinese phones also within 3 years, which will be at CMM level 4 or 5. Of course, after that, I haven't really heard from them, so I'm assuming that they didn't really manage it. So, in some sense, I'm also saying that there's something inherent which possibly also tells us that we are good at IT, yes, but maybe we'll not be good at manufacturing.
See, I think we're late in the game. I don't know if we're good or bad, but we're definitely at least 30 years late in the game. So should we play a catch-up game or should we work on our strengths? I was reading through some of the statistics and I had to come here and talk intelligently. So as you do before an exam, right, you have to just go through a lot of papers. I was reading somewhere that China has all the industries that are there in the UN industry index, all the codes of industry. India has probably 20%. So if you want to build something here in India, you'll have to literally search to find out who your supply chain is going to be, and you have to literally make it from scratch. In China, you don't have to do that. You just have to literally call them and say, I want these components, these are the things they want to build, and they have every possible thing in that ecosystem that they are part of. So I'm not saying we're good or bad. I think rather we might actually be good because Chinese quality is something that all of us have heard about. Indian quality is still considered to be relatively better than Chinese quality. Of course, in China also there are different quality levels, but in general, the brand image of India as far as quality is concerned, I think, the perspective that I have is a little better than the brand image of China. So we might be good at it, but I think we lack the scale, and as I said earlier, also we're decades behind.
So, Mr. Dimitro, you were talking about the size of Indian market. If I look at any of the other plus one candidates, none of them seem to have a market even remotely comparable to the Indian. Does that give us any advantage in terms of attracting these firms, or that doesn't come in their consideration?
So before I answer to your question, just to to the point that Siddharth made about the fact that we should focus on services and manufacturing, probably we cannot compete with China. I think first and foremost, I think the previous panel discussion was more about business model innovations that I heard. And I don't know if that topic, I wasn't here, but I don't know whether there was a topic around that. The fact that, the whole industry is shifting from products to services. So manufacturing is no longer manufacturing in itself. It's a lot about services around the products that we manufacture and how we actually go through the life cycle of it. So in that sense, services is not disconnected from manufacturing, in my opinion. And if you look at, if I just take an example of Volvo, okay, Volvo is a multinational, which is a roughly, close to $50 billion in top line as a company. Construction equipment is about 20% of it, which is about 10 billion. And in India, what do? We actually have manufacturing facilities and we also have a joint venture with Eicher, which is based out of Pithampur. And we have a truck manufacturing facility in Bangalore, bus construction equipment, and we employ roughly about 1,000 people in the manufacturing plants, excluding the JV. But we have 2,500 people who are engaged in services. Services for the world, actually. We do more or less 70% of the world global accounting out of India. We do global digital IT, 50% of global workforce is in India. The entire engineering services for our R&D centers, India is the second largest R&D center for Volvo Group where we don't just engineer for India, but engineer for the world. So in that sense, manufacturing brings services with it. And now if you look at how the business models are innovating, when it comes to whether it's the future electric products or the way even the diesel products or the conventional technology products will actually be taken to market, services will play a very, very big role. We have to offer, like for example, we launched a product called equipment as a service a year and a half ago. And when you look at the business model innovation that we achieved in about 18 months of activity, and then we go and compare with what is happening in that same space around the world, no different. In fact, to some extent, our innovations are a little bit ahead of the world. So in that sense, certain areas we are kind of more or less starting at the same place. And I think if you look at all the electric journeys or the the last mile delivery services in India, so many things have evolved which are a little bit in fact ahead of the rest of the world. So manufacturing for me is one of the pieces of the puzzle, but it's also a very important piece because it adds jobs. And hence, for me, I would still strongly say that China Plus One from a manufacturing perspective is important. Because we got to create those skills, not just high skilled jobs, but a lot of jobs for our population that is out there that needs to be provided proper employment. Coming to your question on the maybe you can just retouch on that.
Yeah, you were saying that is it that any other plus one candidate?
Yes.
This sort of market?
So I think so for that, let me just come back to scale once. And if you think about scale, let's take I can take the automotive example. It's very close to India became the third largest market of automotive sector last year. In construction equipment, that happened some time ago. India is the third largest construction equipment market from 2018 onwards. So it's a small market globally. It's a 1 million units sold globally, of which India is doing roughly about 120,000 this year. So it's the third largest market, and obviously scale brings possibilities to bring supply chain closer to you. And not only that, the potential for our country from the perspective of growth is no other country which can actually come. China is more or less developed its entire infrastructure. It's a mature, it's literally reached oversaturation. The stories around real estate and empty houses, ghost cities and stuff like that. India has a huge amount of catch up to do. It has a potential to absorb maybe another 3 times the kind of volume that we are seeing today. So that attracts supply chain players. The benefit in India is that you have not just tier 1 supplier, you have tier 2, tier 3, and tier N, I think you should say. Our scale offers and our domestic market with a 1.4 billion population that we have offers all kinds of product needs and all kinds of industries are surviving here. So if there is a component manufacturer of an X, he can supply to multiple industries. So there's a scale capability that is there which offers a big advantage. There are, of course, challenges too. A very simple one for our industry is price of steel. Steel prices dictate a big part of product cost in, let's say, a manufacturing product which is using steel, like our construction equipment and all that. And so that is where, how do we make steel advanced? So the raw material side of our supply chain needs to become even more efficient. Logistics need to become even more efficient. Ports have to become more efficient to be able to capture this opportunity. But the opportunity exists, and it is something that a lot of people, particularly in the boardrooms, believe in, that potential is becoming a reality, and we better be here. Let's just take one more minute to explain. Last year in April, we had the global Volvo Group executive board visiting us. And with just one single agenda, how do we pivot towards India? So if boardrooms are discussing this, it's not only Volvo. I'm sure you might have seen on the Economic Times so many big CEOs have been visiting, and have seen a lot of statements in every kind of industry, whether it is manufacturing or services or banking, you name it. So I think the opportunity with our country, there's an opportunity in every sphere to be a China plus one. Forget about China. To be a very big player in the entire value chain, how the world economy works.
So, building on what both of you have said, what Siddharth is saying is that we are very good at English speaking, so I mean, we have an inherent strength, why don't we build on this? But I don't want to sound political. Of course, there's an India, but there is also a Bharat where people may not necessarily know English and they're left out of, you know. In fact, once upon a time when I was at a conference, they were very surprised that in India, no MBA is offered outside of English language. So the question that they had was, so are you saying that unless you know English, you can't do business? And that got me thinking, right? Because in other countries, they have MBA in different languages. But again, that brings me to the question, if are we a bit late because now people are talking about jobless growth even in manufacturing. So even if we try expanding in manufacturing, is it going to really create that many jobs? Or are we better off by staying on the tried and tested path of IT and IT?
I take that. No, so we should not stay on the path of IT and ITS for sure. Manufacturing is important. My point only was that we should not benchmark ourselves with that. It is not China plus one. It is India. India needs manufacturing for absolutely 100%. And we should not stick to only IT and ITS. We are sitting in a management institute. Why don't we become the school to the world? Technology allows you to do that. And all of Africa, all of Asia, most of Asia need management schools, engineering schools, private schools. Why don't we become school to the world while we are educating, maybe 30 crore people at the same time, the young. So there are various other opportunities where there is no supply chain issue. COVID has proven that IT or anything that is enabled through technology, there is no supply chain issue. So why not look at those areas also in addition to manufacturing? Manufacturing for us is not being reliant on China. But the fact of the matter also is that not everything can be built in India, like it is actually done in China. Not everything can be built in India. So we have to pick and choose our battles to win the war. So ITS is only a very small component of the services industry in any case. We have tourism, huge potential. We talk about education, financial services, amazing potential in financial services. And also coming to the point of India and Bharat, yes, absolutely that is true. But that is where I think we will also need a revolution in agriculture. 70% of Bharat is agriculture, based on the agricultural economy. And that is not going to change in a jiffy. And the question is, do we even want to change our agriculture-based economy? Because of course we'll need food to eat, all of us. So maybe we can lead the world in that revolution, like what we did in the Green Revolution and the White Revolution. So maybe we can think about that also. So by no means I'm saying that manufacturing should be left out. I'm just saying that it should be not benchmarked against China. We should have our own strategy around manufacturing. And if I may take a minute more, my dream is by 2047, India should be a leader in space technology and also put a man on Mars, because that is where the next frontier is. The Earth is already full of people. And I'm not talking about a pipe dream here. I'm really not talking about a pipe dream. In manufacturing, why can't we ask Elon Musk, forget about cars. Rockets is the next orbit to be in, literally and figuratively. Why can't we be leaders in creating rockets that actually go up and come down, reusable rockets? Again, building on our strength of sending, I think the statistic was there, right? Sending a mission to moon at the cost of an auto rickshaw per kilometer, something like that, right? A few paisa per kilometer or a rupee per kilometer, something like that. So that is our true strength. So combining our strength on IT, technology, information technology, artificial intelligence, we are leaders, space, I think we have the vision, we have the power, and manufacturing. Why don't we combine this to hit the next frontier by 2047 and not worry about something that can be outsourced to China? Let it be outsourced. And we worry about the larger play, the larger game, which is, in my opinion, the next game actually is space. If you have read Elon Musk's book, sorry, not Elon Musk's book, but his biography by, what's the name of the author, his biography. Isaac Walter Smith. Yeah. So if you read about it, his mission, he's in mission mode. Just one person to send a rocket and actually bring it back. Sending a rocket now is at par, but actually bringing it back and sending humans to the next frontier, to the moon and to Mars. And he actually boldly states that it should happen in our lifetimes. Let's see if we can conquer that.
Yeah, I'll just touch on the Bharat versus India question. And I think India is not without Bharat. I just say it from the perspective that the core capability or the strength that we have as a country is our social strength. And the values that are, basically rooted in our culture and how we are brought up as in our lives. And I think the values of humility, or what all the different things that we learn every day, and that comes from our upbringing. And when we say India versus Bharat, I think it's the rural versus urban debate that we talk about. And I think if we look at our country, what is powering it? Of course, a few metros do have a very important role to play. But what is the real engine of our country today? It's actually the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities and the rural markets. And even then, if you ask construction equipment, it's a very unknown industry for most of people. I know there are one or two people here who know about it, but its core strength is rural market. There is more products sold in rural markets for the making the pond in the village, or those kind of activities, which is probably we see that impact. So the market grew 22% year over year last year, 2023, and a large part of the growth comes from the rural economy and the smaller towns, and entire business is happening from there. So I think the Bharat has a very important role to play, and both from the ability to create economic demand, but also the fact that that is what is bringing the talent to the world. If I talk about the services that we render to the world, and you take any industry, I think the quality that we are able to deliver is based on the willingness to do hard work, ability to think broadly, the diversity that we have in our society that forces us to work with each other, although a bit chaotically many times. When there are 5 Indians in the room, there will be a lot of arguments, and when there is a foreigner looking at it, they will think that there is a mess going on here, until they see the final product, which somehow finds itself in order. So I think there is a method to our madness, and I think the Bharat is in each one of us. It is coming, for me, it is about the value system that we have in this country, which we still have, because we still have the family system there. We still have a lot of strong connections between the neutral family and the expatriate family. All of that plays in our advantage as a nation, and I think that is the Bharat that is slowly in play, whether we like it or not. And I fully agree with him. The frontiers for growth and frontiers for India is not defined by what is the world economy today. I mean, ISRO has shown that Google engineering works. COVID has shown that we can innovate faster, and we can do things that deliver faster than anywhere else in the world. 2 crore vaccinations done in 18 months or so is not it's not easy, right? It's 2 billion. So I think as a country we have great capabilities, which we are now showing out to the world. That is getting noticed. To take our digital infrastructure for the entire payment systems and all of that, and we are the best in the world. So we have created things that nobody ever thought about. So I think there is a Bharat in play.
Could you also touch upon the jobless growth scenario that people talk about? I mean, will manufacturing really generate those jobs even if we were to become China? Because that seems to be a challenge.
I think it's all about the expansion of the economy. I think ultimately jobs will get created when there is more demand, right? And and of course automation and all those technologies will come into play. That doesn't mean jobs are not getting created. So I would say that there will be there is a global demand which is there. There's an Indian demand which is growing faster. And I think in the coming 10 years, what will drive India's economy will continue to be the domestic market and domestic demand growth in different areas. The higher skilled jobs in services will of course be both for Indian market, but also primarily to serve the rest of the world, because just that the young population, as you said about the English speaking, the ability to scale in services that the global world needs is there in India. But I think this is what I believe, that there is space for growth, there is space for manufacturing jobs to be created. And let's see. I mean, it's a lot of different things. Automotive sector continues to grow. CE sector continues to grow. The latest report that we are talking, I mean, 2022 or 2021, actually, the construction equipment industry forecasted a 2.5 times growth between 2021 to 2030. Now we are looking at 2035 data numbers and 2040 data numbers. We will probably be a number one market by then, because the infrastructure development required in the country is so huge. You talk about projects that have not even started. River linking. River linking has so much of earth-moving work to be done. Of course, it has its own various things that will come into play. In fact, the first river linking project will start in this state, in Betwa. It's already in the tendering stage. So those kind of projects will drive tremendous, opportunities for products that are required to bring water to people and to make our country into a developed nation. You need to have several securities, health security, water security, many things. So there is a lot to be done. The domestic market will drive it. There is definitely manufacturing jobs which will get created, and I don't believe in the fact that jobs are going to be a very big challenge. Jobs will be there. But I would also say that services will always provide more jobs than manufacturing, because as the population is growing, the need for services is also growing. All of us are used to services today. It's almost unconscious. Groceries are on mobile. It's not walking to the kinara.
One of the very interesting things that came from both of you when you were talking about is the innate quality that comes from India. Even when you say that manufacturing volumes are low, we have had a lot of denim price winners, whereas you don't really hear so much about it from China. Maybe they don't really find the need for it. And in terms of even the innovative thinking and all. However, the big challenge also seems to be that, especially because we are in Indore, which is a SME hub, there seems to be a huge gulf in terms of, the MSMEs making the step up. So one of the complaints that my son has whenever I take him to McDonald's these days is that he says either Happy Meal is not available, or if it's available, there's no toy. And I was speaking to somebody in McDonald's and they said, given the government's push to, have most of the toys made in India, they're not able to find a reliable supplier within India who can make toys of that quality. And to me, that was very interesting and shocking. But again, for a long time, we had reserved some of these sectors for the small scale industry, and then maybe we did not really help them in scaling up. So how can we possibly bridge that gap, if you have any words?
Yeah, I think, you come to the fact that MSMEs have had challenges, but I think it's also changing. It's also about what we are asking for, like what are we willing to pay for as well. So the need for quality in the Indian market is also, I think, tremendously changing. The cars that you drive today, no matter how much of it is locally manufactured, it's a very high percentage, right? The fittings that you see in the cars. Is it that, it can't be made toys when people make cars? I think it can. It's just that probably the demand, and that's not the most prioritized need. And if McDonald's starts to look for it, they'll find it. I don't know. I don't see that as a gap, because technological gap doesn't exist. I think people are not focused on those markets. I think toy industry is one area where the government has now brought in policies which to drive the growth in this market. And not just that, but the government is doing two things to support this. One is that it's putting tariff barriers where they very strongly feel the industry needs protection. And recently in construction equipment market, the latest one is on the B loaders. there is a very high duty on importing fully built freeloaders, but they allow CKDs to be brought in December. That's one very specific case that just happened in December. They released in our industry, they released the order. But other than that, they're working on many non-tariff stuff. Quality control orders are literally order of the day. Every day there is some department somewhere in the government releasing a quality requirement on. The idea is to, of course, in many ways work with the industry to make it much more ISI marks and things like that, which any firm from anywhere in the world has to apply and to get certified and all that. So these are all the measures that are taking to try and drive progress in the country. Some of the measures will work, some may not work. I think the toy industry and that industry is not being. Just the fact is that China basically took the whole world's toy industry. The fact is that whether it is Lego or whether it is McDonald's, Happy Meal, everything is from China. Is that the most prioritized sector that will come? Will that get the most attention? We don't know. But let's hope that it does, and that every sector that has potential will finally find its supply chain in the market like us. But I think that's beside the point. I think we do see that possibility to source. We have products that we manufacture in India where 95% is sourced. So it's not that it's 95% localized.
By value.
By value. Yeah. So it's not impossible to source if you really find. But then you have to. One of the things is supplier development. MSMEs need a hand-holding to build quality. They just don't know that exact deliverable. What is it? So manufacturers like us, what do? We go in, we go put processors. We have supplier development teams working with them. A lot of that. Right? I mean, I'm sure Pradeep can share more. Volvo and Eicher signed joint venture about 16, 17 years ago, and how much has changed in the Pithampur plant since then by knowledge sharing, by process sharing. This is what happens. That how you bring the knowledge from the rest of the world to this country and then bring that into play. So I think automotive sector has done a lot. Yeah. So we make our 5 and 8 liter engines only in India and export to the rest of the world. It's done in Pithampur.
You're coming from the Indore ecosystem, and given that we have Pithampur, Devas, and a lot of these MSMEs, I'm sure you have interacted with them. What do you think is the real challenge for them in, trying to move up?
So again, I'm not an expert in the manufacturing sector at all, but being the chair of CII for Malwa, I do come across complaints every now and then from MSME. But before that, I'd like to share a story. So about 10 years ago, we were building a new office in Indore, and the furniture outlay, furniture, interior, carpet, light, furniture, etc. 1,200-seater office. The furniture outlay for the cost was about 10 crores. And I told a very trusted fellow of mine who was glorified. He had a very small cottage industry as a furniture developer. I said, why don't you go and buy the equipment? I'll give you advance, and you set up a manufacturing plant for this for the furniture, and I will be the first person to buy it. I mean, you can consider that as my advance for the furniture. And he said, "Yeah, I'm ready to do it." It was clear. I mean, he could have leapfrogged into the next orbit, a 10 crore order right at his doorstep. But he clearly said, medicine Innova. That is when my China journey actually started. And that is when I had to go to China for 5-6 times and try and look at the market there. And that was my exposure to China. So what I'm trying to come at here is the MSME still struggles with very basic needs, to be very honest. Volvo Eicher, there are a few other plants. I think these are more the exception than the rule to be. I am in touch with a fair number of MSMEs. Maybe they are struggling with the same sadak, bijli, pan. That's the unfortunate part. And of course, Indore also is plagued by a lack of professionally run organizations. Many MSMEs in the Pithampur area, again, Volvo Eicher and the likes are a little bit of an exception. Many MSMEs are family-run businesses. And I mean, not every family-run business and not every son and grandson will have the same aspiration as the person as his forefathers, his or her forefathers, to take the business forward. So these are two systemic problems that I see in the Indore ecosystem. Having said that, the opportunities are there. As you rightly said, a lot of vendor development happens in the area, but I think a lot more can be done, should be done, especially by the entrepreneurs of the area, and not be overly reliant on either the government or handholding like Volvo. That handholding is required, but that will come in later when you actually express interest. So first you have to raise your hand and say, okay, I want to do this, and then everything else will follow. So the opportunity, as I said, is very much there. It is really for our mindset, the Indori mindset, to go above poha and jalebi every single day and try and explore the world. The world outside also, it's a very large world out there which we need to still explore.
It's very interesting that you bring this up because in my interactions with SMEs, they seem to source a lot of their products or components from China. And they do have a China story going on. And I don't know then what exactly is it that's stopping them. I mean, they all visited China, whoever I have interacted with. I'm talking of firms that have a turnover of maybe 10 to 20 crores. They have already had exposure to China. They say, okay, we seem to have whatever we want. But again, as you said, the basic things about Bijli Sarak Mahal. Now, if I look at the government schemes, right, trying to make it an alternative, of course, through PLI or even one district, one product, so that you can have a competence one place. Which of these government schemes do you think would really make a difference going forward?
Yeah, that question.
Yeah, please.
No government scheme will ever make a difference, and I really believe that. And this might sound very
In terms of
bombastic. Yeah, no subsidy. No entrepreneur is going to set up something brand new because of subsidy. It will never happen. You look at where the most value add is happening today in the world. It is San Francisco Bay Area. Do you know what is the cost of living there? It is sky high. No Tesla, no Google, no Microsoft has thrived on any sort of government help. It is just impossible. Why would an earthquake prone area in America with a cost of living so high, with traffic problems rivaling that of Indore, with an airport that is not well connected? It is literally at the edge of the world. The next airport is Hawaii, if you go further west. Why would that ecosystem thrive and bring in trillions of dollars into the global ecosystem, global value chain? Trillions. So it is not, I'm sorry to say, it is not government, it is the human spirit. As simple as that. It is nothing but the human spirit. And one thing leads to the other. So this park started, Palo Alto Research Center. I think that was a genesis, we can say, of Silicon Valley. That thing started, something happened, and some grand scheme of things got decided that, okay, this thing will start bearing fruit from there. And that thing led to the other competition, this, that, and everyone wants to go to the Bay Area. Half of India is in Bay Area. All the top CEOs, Indian CEOs, live out of the Bay Area. So I think it is the human spirit which has to be rekindled into the heart of it. That is where I come from. Government subsidies, I'm sorry, will not do.
Need not be subsidy, even a scheme.
Nothing. Government should stay out of this. Government should absolutely stay out of it. The only reason why the IT sector has done so well is because the government knows nothing about it.
Yeah, never met us say that.
The government knows about manufacturing. They understand 10 kilos इधर लोहा गया उधर से कार निकलना चाहिए या 100 किलो लोहा गया उधर से कार निकलना चाहिए. Here, I am in an SEZ, Industrial IT Park. There is a rule. In an IT SEZ, plant and machinery should not be taken out of the IT SEZ. Laptops and mobile phones are actually shipped in and out like there is no tomorrow. So the government does not understand this business. Most of the export, the so-called export from India for the IT and ITES sector actually happens after 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time. That is when you actually deal with your clients and you charge money for talking to the clients, $100 an hour, $200 an hour, etc., and so on. Most of the exports actually happen from home. They do not happen from the IT park that is set up by the government of Madhya Pradesh. So this is the hard fact: the government knows nothing about business, and it should stay that way. They should help us deal with China on the border, deal with Pakistan on the border, create some regulation around some currencies and all of that. Most important, they should create clear policies around health and education. That is the game changer as far as the government is concerned. But my factory, let it be mine. Let me run my factory the way I want to. I think that is my perspective.
Interestingly, echoing what you said, the late Devan Mehta said that, IT and beauty are the two segments that India does very well. Because government doesn't really get it.
So I will only add by saying that government should learn how to get out of the way. And I think that is government's job. So that is very important. Because otherwise they are always in the way. Right? Whether it is about the number of licenses you need to get, how easy it is to get work with the different departments and all of that. So I think government is a very important role to play, but not by schemes and stuff like that, but more to say how do you become a facilitator, but not an obstacle in the road towards entrepreneurs. This is the biggest challenge. Hence, the mindset of government is the one very, very critical. And I think that has changing, it's changing, but it's still a long way to go. We are not a number one easy to ease of doing business country. We're still at what, 25 or something like that, right? A long way to go. so I think they have to find a ways and means to facilitate and make it easy for entrepreneurs to use their innovation to create things. And I think IT sector is a very clear example. I agree with you totally that where government they created IT parks, they thought they did that, but they actually basically in the mind they said, okay, let's give them space. This is what they, both in terms of physical space, but also mental space. And so IT industry grew because IT, all these big guys came together and they asked government what they want to do. Today, what is the biggest claim to fame for India? It's the India stack. There again, government has only been a facilitator. They're kept out of the way. They try to use every other brain power that the country has to somehow make a thing, and then government facilitate. They did things like getting bank accounts opened, and they did the infrastructure. Right? Okay, let's get people bank accounts. Let's get people mobile. Let's get the last village electrified, which private sector cannot do. So I think government has a role to play as a facilitator. They should know what is their job. I think it's good that in the recent years we have seen that happen, and it needs to accelerate.
If I may take one more second, I'll give you a very populist statement. The government should actually make the MBA program at IIMs free. That is the best thing you can do. Use those 20 lakhs and start your own business. The government should make it free. The government is not earning money from this. So why to take this? So this can be that scheme. Okay, you do an MBA program, keep your 20 lakhs and start something. So clap for me, right?
This will contingent on them starting their own business. So, one question I have, I was thinking something very interesting that of all the ports that are being built in India, all the mega cranes come from one company called ZPMC in China. And is it that we don't have the capability to build those mega cranes, or other suppliers are very costly, or what exactly? I mean, because you're from the construction industry, I thought.
Yeah, the lifting industry, it's called material handling industry, is very large in China, and that's because they develop ports and all of that much ahead of India, and they got the equipment manufacturing capability also. Of course, India has always had very small material handling industry, and a lot of the specialized stuff they always imported from Europe or US in the past. But I can only say that China has a very low cost of steel. That gives them a huge advantage. It's not a low cost of steel on their own. It, of course, it's efficiency, but it's also because the way that country operates. It's not a market economy. It's believe that that's how it. So that gives them a big advantage. There are certain very specific products where they dominate the world, not just India. Anywhere in the world, they dominate. So I think that is because also that those products are not a very high volume globally. So you cannot have multiple places where you can innovate on such products because the total market is only so much. So you will see those, in shipbuilding and other, you know where, which is the country where they make the biggest maximum number of offshore rigs, offshore drilling rigs. Do you know which country? Singapore. Did you know that? How can Singapore be the only offshore drilling rigs, deep water drilling rigs? You remember the Mexico fire? That rig was manufactured in the Keppel shipyard in Singapore. Nobody knows it. These are specialized niche areas where somebody will dominate. I think that's really the reason for port cranes and stuff. Germany has great cranes, but nobody wants to buy from there because in India the mindset is to have low cost. And today Chinese quality on those things are improved dramatically. There was a time when they were not so great. So those will always remain. Those specific areas will remain. I'm sure India will also have such areas, which are our cottage industry, for example, what we can create that nobody in the world can create. So very specific skill sets there are. So I think those we can keep outside the scope of this discussion.
It's also interesting that you talked about the way the country operates. Is that also a reason why government, in India doesn't understand IT? I understand, but maybe people will not go on a protest saying that this is a polluting industry and all to run an IT firm, right? I mean, you look at copper, Sterlite, right? Because of Sterlite getting closed, we have to become a net importer. So I'm also wondering if it's also the nature of the governance itself that we have, the democratic system.
Yeah, absolutely. In China, I always love to joke. There is no religion and there is no politics. What have they got to do? In India, you have too many religions and too much politics. So in China, if there, so on religion and politics, we spend about, let's say, half a day. In China, they have that extra half day. And of course, they can't protest. But at the same time, I would say religion, politics, the family value system, democracy, I think this is something that we should cherish. We should cherish our freedom of speech. We should cherish the way our government is not the current government or whichever, our system works, our democratic system works. Of course, there are weaknesses, challenges, but the fundamental idea of democracy in India is very strong. And that is something I am proud of, and we should all be proud of. That is something you will not find in China. So, yes, those protests will happen, and they should continue to happen. It will just help us course correct and maybe find a better way. But if we become a bit of an autocratic nation, like some of the countries are, I think we will lose the essence of India. And at the cost of maybe a few percentage points of industrial output, I would not recommend that we lose the essence of multiculturalism, family values, religion. All of these help us, sort of stay grounded, and we are not dependent on spiritually. We are not dependent on anyone. That is our supply chain, right? Straight up to God.
Right. I don't want to come between you and lunch, but we have time for possibly one question or two. Yes.
Hi, sir. Siddharth, sir. This is Tapan. So, before I ask my question, I would like to voice my opinion on you talking about the government and the entrepreneurship that we have in India and how government should, step out of the whole ecosystem. But in my opinion, I think I would take this polarized stand at first because I think UPI is a perfect example for us where government has, you talked about it, the government has been a great facilitator. They have been also behind the Jam Trinity that we created and the NPCI and all the sandbox for all the UPI and then to be India stack that we are saying. Now my question is around the positioning India 2047. Like we are talking about global supply chains and how India is going to be crucial. When specifically towards ITS, when India pitched in IT, we had a very unique value proposition of English and demographics, right? And recently I've been reading a lot about demographics and how I was having the same discussion with Gary as well that how big countries are taking decisions based on demographics. Russia entered into Ukraine when they had the biggest band of an age appropriate war appropriate age group, right? So I was thinking that as we grow old, we are around 30, 31 median age, we are going to lose our net value proposition of a young age group, right? So how India is going to handle that in another 10 or 15 years, I say. And how as managers, upcoming managers, middle managers, how we should prepare ourselves for that.
You should have more children.
Definitely,
No, that is serious. Look at Japan.
planning on that. Yeah, definitely.
Congratulations. But seriously, you should have more children. Look at Japan, look at Europe. Because, and this is where family values necessarily come. We cannot throw away the family. We cannot just throw away the idea of a family and that too of a large joint family. So this is a serious solution to a serious problem. Let's have more children. Because we do not have today, I'm not saying 50 years ago when hum to hamare do was the mantra, but today I don't think many Indians, not like we're talking about all Indians, but many Indians, they do not have to worry about roti kapda and makan. Many, definitely there's a huge chunk of the population, about 40 crores, 40 crore people still live under the poverty line. So I'm not generalizing it to that extent. But we have again a large middle class that is unfortunately not looking at the family in the same way as our parents used to look at the family system. And we need to sort of continue looking at the family. The demographic dividend is because of that. And we should have people, we should have more people, younger people, because hopefully 20 years from now, 10 years from now, we will have the resources, we continue to have the resources to support an even larger population. And the social security system in the US, in Europe, is crumbling because there's nobody now to contribute. See, the social security scheme is the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. Can you agree on that? Iski topi, uske sir, uski topi, uske sir, uski topi, uske sir, mere sir ka bhai, God knows. So it is the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. So if you want to continue with that Ponzi scheme, we'll have to have more heads to put the topi on. But I really feel that that is one way to look at it.
But isn't that the fact that as economies grow richer and in country grows richer, there is going to be a cut down on population?
Yes. Yes. It's happening in South Korea. They don't have children. In Japan, they don't have children. So what is the answer to not having children? Have children. As simple as that.
I have two kids, but I will get to the next year. I think it's more linked to education and less to so education and how society progresses. The urbanization drives, I think, the population behavior, how population grows. But we have 10 years. I think we can fix it in 10 years. What problem that we have? I think many countries, the whole world has realized the challenge of population very late. I mean, take Singapore, a small country. I mean, they had no problem with population, but what did Lee Kuan Yew do? He forced people to have only one kid. I mean, they just literally said no. I mean, they made it like a social problem that people did not want to, and both, everybody should work. All that was the whole thing. But today they have a big problem. Their median age is more than 50. I mean, they are struggling, and they have a problem that the local population doesn't want immigrants to come. There's a huge challenge there. But they can't grow and survive as a country, they don't have immigrants. So they are now in a social problem. Then how to attract manpower and how to attract people into the country and still maintain the social fabric of safety and all of that. So it's an issue which Sweden is going through the same thing. They're incentivizing third and fourth and fifth children. This is where the government is coming in. So I think the demographic challenge is there, but I think in a way the advantage we have is the policymakers realize the problem already now. We have the demographic dividend for the next 10 years still. Can we use this time frame to get the entire social system to understand as well? And let's see. I mean, whatever government policies are, ultimately we will all make our own choices. What we want to do. Right? And if the youngsters want to want to marry late and they want to actually enjoy the world, they want to visit the best tourist places in the world like Europe, so or go and study there and then come back to work here in this, because jobs will be in India. Jobs are not going to be in Europe and US. Jobs are going to be in India and probably US, where Indians can work. So I think so this will be a realization that people will have to have. But can you impose such things? I think China is a big failure. Try and impose it. It has a backlash. I think let's see. I think where we go. But we have 10 years to play the game, and then we can. But I think people are already thinking about it. At least in the policy makers, they're all thinking about how to manage the way ahead.
A quick statistic. We were talking about this yesterday. So me and Garima, we have 54 first cousins. 54. But my son has 2 first cousins. A total of 4 siblings. I mean 4 brothers and sisters. And out of 4, 2 are first cousins. So look at the support system that these people will have and what I have today, or we have today. I think it's a huge, huge area of concern.
Okay, I think as a moderator, I generally have the last word, but I just have one very big question to both of them. What do you think we as faculty can do or institute can do to position India better for 2047? Maybe just one thing that we can do. Of course, we'll be happy to sit on your boards, but apart from that.
That's a good one.
I think the faculty, particularly I am doing a fabulous job, and I know it from close quarters. I think I am particularly doing a very good job. But thank you for putting us on the spot. Now it becomes a difficult sort of a thing, but when I was talking to a bunch of people outside, I think the faculty should consider, the institute, I wouldn't say the faculty per se, but the institute should consider encouraging more and more students to take up entrepreneurship. I don't know the formula to that, but I think it is a little bit of the mindset and what you go through, and I would say don't make number crunchers out of MBA students. Have them think from the heart. If they start thinking from the heart, I think you'll see much more rebellious streaks. And we need those rebellious streaks to start great organizations. No organization was created because somebody was a happy-go-lucky guy and he said, "Chalo kuch chalu karte," and he did not have that single-minded sort of mission mode kind of a situation. And the more people we have who are able to question the status quo, I think the better off this country.
I think that was already said. In my mind, the most important thing would be that can you make sure that everyone who passes through this great institution is going out with much more open-mindedness, much more confidence in their abilities, and having to some extent discovered their innate capability. I think we can focus on that and less on we'll all study what we have to study, but they should leave this institution with these things as their real value that they carry. And with that, the sky is the limit for people who pass through from these kind of institutions. I think these institutions are doing a great job. I can only say that I'm an accidental engineer. Everybody in the school was writing exams, so I wrote exams. I had no idea. This is how it happened. That was a period. But I think this is the information age. I mean, my son at the 10th standard is clear that he wants to be a designer. Okay. We helped him also to understand it. But the fact is that can we build that innate capability to be, what is the true potential of the individual? If they can discover that here and then become more confident about it. And he said, entrepreneurs is one journey, but leaders of existing institutions are also places for entrepreneurship, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think we should, encourage this.
Thank you everyone for the insightful discussion. As we conclude our second panel discussion, let's reflect on some takeaways from this discussion. As Mr. Krishnan rightly said, India for India and India for the world, along with a slogan probably that a tree is nothing without its roots, which came out from the urban versus the rural debate. And Mr. Sethi's outlook on why China plus one, why not just India, was something that we all should think about. Now, the panelists, experts in their fields, thoroughly analyzed the dynamic factors, including India's global standings. The discussion provided a deeper understanding of India's role amid global economic shifts, offering a nuanced perspective on potential opportunities and challenges. We appreciate your active engagement in this thought-provoking exploration into India's economic outlook. Thank you for this insightful discussion. Now, before we move ahead to the final vote of thanks, I'd like to invite Devahudi to announce the results for the quiz that we had some time ago.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll have to take the help of our quiz masters to announce the results.
So guys, here to announce the finalists for the quiz in no particular order. So, okay, team number 206, Mitransh, Nimit, and Raghav. Not here, okay. Team LFG, Pratham, Yash, and Aditya. Team Renegades, Siri Shukla. Not here. NIT Wale Quizzers, Atal Pushkar and Vedit. Not here. Team Crackers, Arvind, Chandra, and Sanko. Serial winners, Sharad and Shiva. Not here. The Quizzy, yeah, Quizzy girls, Mayuk and Devahudi. And Team NAG. Yeah, shout out to Team OG for missing out on the finals by 0.5. But can we have a round of applause for all the winners? And we'll be seeing you at 3:30.
Ayush, तीसरा की कौन है? तीसरा.
All right, so congratulations to all the winners and wish you luck for the round two. And as we move ahead to the final segment, I'd like to invite EPGP Chair Professor Saurabh Chandra on the stage and extend a vote of thanks to all our guests today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So congratulations to this batch for organizing such a wonderful event, and it's such a short notice actually. Thanks a lot to the directors and other official staff for facilitating this. So I stand before you today with heart full of gratitude and appreciation for the incredible insights shared during this whole event. Two parallel discussions back to back with luminaries, people experts in the field. And it was truly enlightening session, and I learned a lot myself. Lot of learnings for my future lectures would come from here for sure. And we see that. We heard multiple views, which is good in a panel discussion. In one hand, we saw that how we can become China in one way, but also how we can focus on our own strength and become India rather than becoming China. Our esteemed panelists, Garima ma'am. Looking up her names there, Nitesh Beniwal, Satyendra Tiwari, Sethi sir, and Mr. Poor with names actually, sorry. So yeah, Dimitrov Krishnan sir, And so, yeah, so thanks a lot to you guys for taking time out from your very busy schedule and giving us your sharing of your expertise with us. So with your ability to articulate this very complicated concepts in a clear and engaging manner was really helpful. And I'm sure it resonated well with our audience. And this will foster a deep understanding of pivotal role which technology will play in our future as a country in managerial roles and engineering roles. And yeah, and this is, let's see how it goes. I'd also like to express my gratitude to the organizers, the teams which did play a very pivotal role in organizing this event. And I was a bit of concern initially because the target was really ambitious. In 20 days, we were planning to be like 5 top leaders in their fields, and I was a bit scared, but things somehow happened well, and then lot of congratulations to you guys. And yeah, the diversity of viewpoints and the collaborative spirit was really wonderful. And in closing, I want to extend my sincere thanks to each panelist for your time, dedication, and willingness to share your expertise. Your contributions have undoubtedly enriched our understanding of the complex dynamics at play, leaving us with much to ponder and reflect upon. And I look forward to future engagements with you guys at all levels. And whatever foundations have been laid, let's see how we can build upon this. And thanks a lot for being an integral part of this thought-provoking conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chandra, for your impactful speech. And to all our participants, a heartfelt thank you for your active engagement in this insightful discussion. Sir, if you could stay back for 2 minutes. Now I'd like to request Shavi to assist Professor Chandra for extending a final vote of thanks to all our guests today in the following order. If I would request Mr. Nilesh Biniwala to please come on stage and accept the vote of thanks from ourselves. Guys, please round of applause for Mr. Biniwala. Next, we have Mr. Siddharth Sethi. If Mr. Sethi could come on the stage. Next up is Ms. Garima Sethi. If you could please come on stage. Mr. Satyendra Tiwari, if you would please come on stage. And Mr. Dimitra Krishnan to please come on stage and accept your vote of thanks. And finally, I request Professor Gunda to please come on stage and accept a vote of thanks from us. Thank you, Professor Chandra. It's 2:30 and I guess everyone's looking out for when the lunch is. So lunch is now. And before we break for lunch, everyone in the audience, we request you to join us back after lunch because we have some exciting things for you planned. So thank you so much. Please break for lunch. See you all after lunch. Thank you so much.
అంతే